5 months later, I feel stupid for ignoring the red flags. So me and ex broke up about 5 months ago after being together for 1.5 years. In hindsight, I should have never even been in that relationship, but I was depressed and rebounding bad and was so desperate for human connection I fell in love with garbage. At this point I've moved on for the most part, but here are some of the red flags and moments where this walking trash bag did me dirty. 1. This should have been where I left before it started. When we were talking, she was secretly seeing a fellow coworker who was engaged for time. I had told her if she was interested in someone else before asking her out, and she said she wasn't. One night we had plans for her birthday after work, which she postponed meeting up for about 30 minutes and told me she had something come up. Her dumbass forgot she had temporarily given me her location the day before, and I saw her pull into an abandoned parking lot for 30 minutes to meet the guy for time and then met with me after. Should have cut her then, but she said it wasn't happening again, and a month later we were official. 2. The whole time during the relationship she stayed in contact with some of her exes. Some of which she would see in secret, and her excuse was that she didn't want me to assume something was happening. She said they were strictly friends and would never cheat while on a relationship. I later learned after the breakup in a heated argument that she has slept with every single guy friend she's ever had, and she admitted that she struggles with having platonic male friends. 3. She made a new Facebook account that she claimed was for charity work she does with a local animal shelter. However, she had her friend list private, and after the breakup learned she had added pretty much anyone she could, including every single ex or fling she's had. Many of which she talked to after we broke up. 4. She went on a trip for 4th of July where she was going to buy a camper and bring back when she returned. Instead of inviting me, she took a male friend because he had a truck. She swore up and down that nothing would happen and that he would not even sleep near her since he was just a friend. Well, due to the info above in 3, he wasn't just a friend, and he openly tried to sleep with her after breakup. I should have left then as well. 5. She suddenly wanted to start using condoms and got a random STD test one day about a month before breakup. She said it was for health reasons, but she started seeing 2 people the day after the breakup, which confirmed my suspicions that she had been seeing them while we were dating as well. 6. She contacted me after we broke up and we had time several times. I made it clear to her that it was simply that. Later I learned she had been in early dating stage with someone at the time. I felt bad for the guy and disgusted with myself, but in hindsight I should have known. That's who she is. She's too codependent to ever be alone, but too much of a horrible person to commit to someone. 7. She had been in therapy the whole time, which only made things worse. I asked her what her therapist would say about certain issues. Apparently her therapist would say something along the lines of her actions are a result of her trauma and she shouldn't be ashamed of her actions. Which in turn gives her the green light to do shitty things and blame it on her trauma. I have now cut her out completely, besides the occasional awkward exchange around our small town. I've struggled with clinical depression ever since high school, and I've taken steps to love myself and heal before finding someone else. I do not ever want to be unwell enough again where I put up with that kind of BS again. This week has been one of the best weeks I've had in so many years, and I'm looking forward to the future. Story 2. 5 days since I served my STBXW30F of 7 years, now everyone is piling on me to talk to her. I decided to go to NC after I served my wife 5 days ago. I refuse to see her or talk to her, and everyone is dying to talk to her. She drives me nuts, texts and calls 24/7. What can I say to these people to get them to back off without being rude? These are my friends, my family, the people I want to keep in touch with after the divorce is finalized. Some background: we have been dating since the age of 20 and got married when she became pregnant with our child. Our wedding was amazing. We had another child, a daughter, 2 years after the first one, and we had great intimacy, good communication and good finances. We owned our house. We had a cat. The children are well balanced and doing well. Were we happy? Or so I thought. Then about 4 months ago my wife, let's call her Sue, came home from work and loved this new manager they got. Let's call it honest, I immediately felt uneasy, like something was wrong. I smiled and asked a few questions: if he was married, had kids, where he lived, etc. She told me that he was married twice and had 4 children in total. I thought it was probably a crush. I've had some, but they usually pass. So I decided to wait until he probably went away. This happened every day for the next week and I became more and more restless. I decided I needed to see if there was more to do, so I told Sue that I had a virus alert on the home network and needed to update the antivirus software on her tablet, mobile phone and laptop. She has no computer skills. She gave me her equipment and I installed remote monitoring software and keylogging from the best online service I could find. Best $20 per month subscription I've ever had. A few days later I saw the first text messages back and forth between them. They were completely innocent. Mainly work related. However, over the next 4-6 weeks the frequency increases a bit and becomes more personal. I make a sweet confrontation with my wife. She comes home from work and I stare intently at her. Susan, what's wrong? Me, did you crash your car or something? Sue, what's not? Me, it looks like you did something wrong and you try to hide it? Sue, no? I do not know what you're talking about. Do I look guilty? Are you lying to me? Do you have something to tell me? Sue, no, I just had a long day at work, blah. The following days there were fewer messages between them, but they soon returned to it in full force. The texts start to get flirty. I address her gently again. Again he lies to my face. I decide it will probably end badly in about 2 months and decide to prepare for the worst. I'm also starting to prepare myself emotionally. Over the next 2 months, their exchanges evolve into a full-blown emotional relationship, and it becomes more and more sexual. I confront my wife repeatedly. I present no proof. She keeps lying. I won't force her to stop. After all, she's a grown woman and she makes her own choices. She lies to my face over and over again. I feel a huge chasm opening between us. Even intimacy stops. I find myself controlling the marriage parallel to their activities. I'm devastated, but I'm getting plenty of exercise and bracing myself for the reality that the only likely outcome at this point is divorce. I'll get a lawyer, prepare the papers, and even hire a man on call to serve her if and when I decide to pull the cord. Then I see the first messages where they want to meet. I'm actually relieved since I can finally decide to end it. It's excruciating just to watch this shipwreck unfold. I rent a room on the same floor the day they want to meet and get my guy ready to serve them at the hotel. D-Day is approaching. She lies and tells me she has to work overtime. I drive to the hotel and wait for her arrival. Me and the guy I hired to serve her go upstairs about 10 minutes after she gets in the elevator and we go to her floor. The elevator needed a key card. That's the only reason I rented a room. We walk to the door. I hear moans, so there they are. I hide around the corner and he knocks loudly on the door. They are silent. Frank, what exactly is it? Serving person. I need to deliver something urgently to Sue. What is it, Sue? Serving man. I don't know ma'am, but I just heard it's urgent, so it has to be delivered to you right now. Eventually, after some more back and forth, the wife in a robe opens the door. Serving the man, Sue, last name? Wife, of course. I emerge to sign the form as she receives the envelope. Upon seeing me, my wife just turns white. I walk over to her after completing the necessary paperwork. She doesn't move, and I have no idea what's wrong with her. She certainly appears perplexed. She feels as though what she is seeing is illogical. I had prepared for this situation. I look around the space. Frank, I know you're in there, but please show yourself. He clearly appears scared as he turns to face the corner. Frank, did you enjoy my wife? Or is it lying to your own wife? Or is it having several mistresses at once? Or is it lying to and cheating on everyone? Frank, is that it? Frank, nothing. Then I turn to face my wife. Me, Sue, you didn't really believe you were this guy's only sidekick, did you? There are, at least, 3 of you. I made this up. I don't know if he has any other mistresses besides my wife. All I had to do was be nasty and ruin their plans. Sue, pay attention to me. You are now single, so I won't bother you any longer. Go back and carry on with your activities. I stormed off after that, started crying, but I didn't want them to see, so I ran down the stairs rather than waiting for the elevator. My wife let out a primal scream that was unlike anything I had ever heard as I was traveling. That scream has given me a lot of comfort over the past few days. I went to my room and sobbed hysterically for several hours. Now that it's mostly over, I'm glad it's over. I can continue. Actually, I feel liberated. They are currently staying with my parents. I informed the children. I even started to flirt with a coworker's college. And now that I'm using Tinder, I'm chatting with a few women, which gives my ego a huge boost. I don't want anything violent or serious. I doubt I'll ever trust anyone enough to be in a committed relationship again. Since then, I haven't spoken to my wife. She constantly messages me, which I ignore. But everyone keeps calling and putting pressure on me to talk to her or feel bad about it. Because I believe Frank's wife would be interested in knowing, and because I don't believe Frank will suddenly grow a backbone and admit his guilt, I have also considered telling Frank. Edit, I've made up my mind to tell the wife, so I called her and gave her the main details. She didn't completely believe me, so I will be meeting her at a coffee shop in an hour. I've also started to request that those who call me ask her why I don't talk to her. The barrage seems to be slowed down by it. Update, 5 days since I served my STBXW30F of 7 years, now everyone is piling on me to talk to her. I would first like to thank everyone for their comments. I was able to get rid of the majority of the callers thanks to it. There are now only a few lingering tyrants trying to press their pressure on me. Frank's wife and I met. We'll talk more about that below. The 2 most effective answers ended up being, why don't you ask her why we aren't conversing? This worked well. If step 1 doesn't work, try step 2. Consider the trauma Sue has inflicted on me for me to stop communicating with her. You pressuring me is adding a lot of stress. Will you pay for my psychotherapy if I have a complete mental breakdown? No? Then maybe you should back off. A-okay. Click. Second, I believe I need to make a few clarifications. Many people seem to believe that I was in complete control and that my maneuver was flawless. I was a complete mess all day long, with the exception of the 10 minutes when I confronted her. I had to prepare and steel myself for 2 months before I could successfully handle the 10-minute confrontation. I was hoping she would go back to the door and come down. She had numerous opportunities to pause and confess, but she chose not to. I suppose that right up until the very last second, I was hoping that she would have stopped because then we could have continued talking about reconciliation until they started to physically interact. It took everything in me not to cry in the hotel. In fact, I started crying even before I got to the end of the hallway. I also did not do this out of any desire for retaliation. Rather, I did it to gain some freedom and self-worth. Being cheated on was beneath you, weakening you, and emasculating you. I've become a shell of the person I once was. I am aware that the reason for this is that I truly loved her, which is the reason I chose to move to North Carolina. I don't feel like I'm strong enough to face her yet without crumbling, and I'll never, ever again act weak in front of her or anyone who might suggest that to her. My wife was surprised and confronted when I asked Frank the questions. Not them. I regained control over my life, but I am aware that I am too frail to maintain it if I were to meet her right now. I'll steely myself and stiffen my resolve as a result. I won't ever be kind to her or think about her again. I'll be nothing more to her than a stone-cold, emotionless, uncaring ex-husband. Once the divorce is finalized, I'll set fire to their entire existence. I will strive to improve myself and move on with my life until then. F them. They are free to act however they please. I can only influence my own choices. Many have questioned how I can be so calculating and cold. I believe some have even referred to me as crazy. That is not how I see it. I see these as absolutely necessary actions for my own well-being and sanity, but let me be clear, I don't enjoy this at all. Life is change, and in this case, my marriage has gangrene, so I'm cutting it off before it spreads to other parts of my body and results in lasting harm. Additionally, I've made the decision to stay off of Tinder and avoid flirting. It was a nice ego boost, but now I feel exposed. Furthermore, because I currently lack much emotional control, I run the risk of hurting someone else. To put anyone else at risk of suffering just to boost my ego would be selfish on my part. We spoke for hours at the coffee shop where we met when I met with Frank's wife yesterday. When she saw me next to her on the screen, she called Frank in her state of shock and confronted him. He made all the usual begging and pleading. She had been getting ready for this as we spoke, but in the end, she just hung up on him. She ultimately spent the night in the spare room of my new apartment. She simply couldn't go home and confront him. It was cathartic to be able to express my rage with someone who knew how this betrayal feels as we spoke into the night. Last night, I overheard her sobbing herself to sleep. It was heartbreaking, and I wanted to go give her a hug, but I didn't want to make her feel awkward or uncomfortable. Today I will inquire if there is anything I can do to assist. I've told her she's welcome to stay as long as she likes. Nobody else is aware of the apartment but me. Despite being small and lacking in furniture, it is well stocked with food and has all the necessities. Before facing Frank, she is attempting to gather her thoughts. Her phone has been inundated by Frank's messages and excuses. She had not answered any of them as of this morning when I left for work. Beyond messages 1 and 2, I've only spoken to my wife's mother. She is very nice and has always made me feel at home and cared for, which is why I like her. She informed me that my wife would be admitted to a mental hospital because she had discussed committing suicide. Evidently, she has been in bad shape ever since the hotel. I informed her that she was no longer in need of my care and that she was now responsible for her decisions and their effects. Since it was already upsetting me and I needed time to properly distance myself from her, I would appreciate it if she didn't give me any more information about my wife. I told her that there is absolutely no chance of getting back together. Outside of matters pertaining to our children, we won't communicate at all after the divorce is finalized. And all of that will be done while twisting. I'm currently occupied enough just taking care of myself. I guess I'm not as strong as people make out because it took me 2 months of intense effort to finally gather enough strength to cut the cord. If I ran into her right now, I think I would start crying like a baby. Everyone calling interfered with my ability to take the time I needed to heal. Reddit, thank you once more for assisting me in thwarting the well-intentioned individuals who were attempting to interfere in my relationship on my wife's behalf. You guys rock. Update 2. 5 days since I served my STBXW30F of 7 years, now everyone is piling on me to talk to her. I want to thank you all once more for your support. I apologize that I won't be able to reply to everyone because it has been so overwhelming. It appears that someone created a YouTube video or something, and it went viral. I made an effort to read each suggestion, and I now have a ton of fresh ideas to consider. It's incredibly useful, in my opinion. You Reddit users are absolutely freaking amazing for taking the time out of your day to assist a total stranger on the internet. I feel a lot stronger now as a result. I salute each of you and express my gratitude. Anyway, many people have asked me to provide updates as events occur, so here we go. Her mother informed me that my wife had attempted suicide and had been admitted to a hospital. She required 27 stitches to her wrist, making the situation pretty serious. Unexpectedly, she made no requests of me. Instead, she merely asked that I let her know if she could be of any assistance. She truly is amazing. My wife and I have yet to speak. When I am prepared, I will speak with her. Not yet, and I'm not quite ready to face her. She is the mother of my children, and while I want her to be healthy and capable of being a good mother to them, I'm not going to let her most recent behavior alter my course of action. My wife was well aware that any infidelity would result in the immediate and complete end of our marriage. She had numerous opportunities to turn around, but she chose not to. Over the years, I have had numerous chances to cheat. I've been foolishly inebriated on occasion, but I never did anything about it. Even when I was completely off my rocker, I knew what to do and have never even flirted back. I understand that it's normal for everyone to have crushes because I have had them as well. Again, though, I've never taken any of these actions. Instead, I've made a conscious effort to avoid contact until the crowding has subsided. There is, in my opinion, no justification for my wife's decisions or actions. To kill someone while driving drunk is not an acceptable defense. I don't want to hear any justifications because I've already made up my mind that divorce is the only possible outcome. It's better to just end it because I will never be able to forgive her. For everyone, including her, it is the ideal solution. I know I said I wanted to burn it all to the ground, but I probably won't. Because it felt good, I entertained this fantasy in my head. Inflicting harm on her, getting her fired, etc. Neither my kids nor I will gain from it. If this is widely known, it will probably just make me responsible for her maintenance and it will affect my kids. I'm not willing to pay that price for some momentary emotional gratification. I have only spoken to her mother and my brother and my parents thus far. Her dad passed away last year. Although vengeance is so incredibly alluring, I will probably keep it that way. We now embrace when we cry because Frank's wife is doing much better. Stop suggesting that we make out. We have absolutely no romantic inclinations toward one another. Being honest, it really does help a lot to have someone by your side who is going through the same thing, especially when it becomes too much to bear. Since my early years, I have only ever been open with my wife. Frank's wife is just the second. Initially, I found it very difficult to trust people, and these days I find it to be damn near impossible. But how is it that I felt at ease around Frank's wife? In the privacy of the apartment, we work and talk things out and make significant progress. Today, I actually went to see Frank with his wife. It was quite intense, but ultimately, his actions were somewhat expected. Is Frank? He is an absolute SH, in the nicest possible sense of the word. Stain on humankind? I kept quiet during the meeting because I was only there to offer my new friend emotional support. In his desperation, he made outrageous promises in an effort to entice her to return home. He revealed everything, proving that my wife was not the only one, as I had suspected. In the past 12 months, he has had 4 mistresses, and 2 before that. Only 3 months after their wedding, for the first, he says he has a S-time addiction? WTF? Why get married at all if he is like this? Why not bring it up before you do? I have never met anyone weaker or more slimy than this guy. But perhaps I'm biased. Before we met, I was afraid I would turn out his lights, but once I saw him, I felt bad for him. He seems more like a perverted, appalling imitation of a man to me than an actual man. That epiphany was surprisingly freeing. Frank even tried gaslighting and blaming his wife at one point. He basically didn't accept any responsibility, nothing at all. Somehow, it was all someone else's fault. He was quieted when I had to laugh aloud. I'll get ready to meet my wife, probably the following week, and I'll invite my dad. Since he has a strong sense of objectivity and I value his opinion greatly, he will be able to point out my unreasonable behavior or hers. We are finished, and we will get divorced. I don't want to sugarcoat anything or instill false optimism. No possibility of reconciliation exists at all. Now we need to figure out how to peacefully co-parent and coexist on the same planet. I'm afraid of giving up, so I'm really hoping I can hold it together long enough to stick with it. It truly is the best choice for everyone. I already know the result, so there's no need to drag this out. I've been extremely fair in my proposed divorce agreement. I've proposed splitting everything 50-50, but now that she's lost it, I'll propose that I get primary custody for the time being. In order to retake control of the kids' daily care, my parents and I have already developed a plan. As soon as possible, I want to get my kids back to a life that is as close to normal as possible. CPS has been very positive in our conversations, so there are no issues there. Frank's wife will be allowed to stay in the apartment for as long as she likes, and I also want to have a place I can run away to if I need to. I will also move back to our house toward the end of the week. Overall, I am doing much better, and a lot of that is because of all of you wonderful Reddit users. Thank you so much. Update 3. 5 days since I served my STBXW30F of 7 years, now everyone is piling on me to talk to her. Sorry, but the news for today isn't very optimistic. I was really boosted by all the suggestions and encouragement over the past few days. I was in a great place, but coming back down has been incredibly painful. Frank's wife has been in complete meltdown since the confrontation with Frank yesterday. Neither of us has slept at all. She was taken to the hospital in an ambulance a short while ago. She began experiencing dreadful panic attacks. She lay on the ground gasping for air and trembling hysterically. It has been horrifyingly terrible. Furthermore, I am currently incapable of providing her or anyone else with the proper care. Since I am having a lot of difficulties today and I feel like I shouldn't be alone, I have asked my dad to come stay with me. It was necessary for me to call Frank, who is listed as her emergency contact, and ask him not to visit the hospital if they call. Before they took her away, she gave me one final instruction to complete it. I didn't really know how to deal with him, but I basically threatened to destroy his entire world if he disobeyed her wishes and stayed away. I'm hoping he pays attention. I'm not currently strong enough to take action if he doesn't. I'm completely worn out and just feel empty and depressed. I hope my dad can help me get back on my feet so that I can see my kids later today. I really don't want my kids to see me like this, but I miss them so much. I am having a really difficult time coping as the finality of it all begins to sink in. Cheaters don't really consider the consequences of their selfishness, which include a mountain of unending suffering and human wreckage. And for what? Cheap thrills, sex that isn't serious, a fantasy, or attention? What could possibly be worthwhile considering the costs and risks involved? I still have my heart set on getting a divorce. I am unable to forgive her because I am aware of myself. To do that, I would have to erase my self-respect, and I would despise myself for it. In that case, I would be of no use to anyone. If we attempted to make amends, the resentment and anger would eventually come to the surface, and I would treat her badly. Even I'm not sure I could continue to be non-violent over time. The only way out is to file for divorce and stop all communication with the exception of what is required to co-parent our children because I don't want to be that person. I might be able to forgive her in the future and at the very least, we could become friends, but for the time being, that is just not a possibility. According to my conversation with my wife's mother, although my wife is currently stable and on suicide watch, she will be moved to a specialized mental health facility today for additional care. My wife apparently found out about my posts on Reddit, and after reading it, she tried to stop it. I received harsh criticism for posting here from my wife's mother. But despite everything, I don't regret it because it has enabled me to advance. My wife's attempt was too focused for me to believe it was an attention-seeking tactic. Many commenters have made compelling arguments that my wife was under the influence of something and that Frank is a magical snake oil salesman. It's possible, and if so, it will be simpler for me to develop a friendly co-parenting relationship. Given enough time, I will be able to accomplish this, but it will require a lot of work on my part. It will be a little simpler to proceed in that direction if this viewpoint is included. Now I just need to be able to persuade myself that this is the case. I'm not sure how I'll handle that. It still doesn't excuse her behavior, so I'll make an effort to stay on track because doing so is in everyone's best interests. I've found that writing on this site has been both therapeutic and rewarding, but given the current circumstances, I believe I will temporarily stop posting. Most likely until the following week after I see my wife on Tuesday. I'm not sure if I'll need one before then, but I do believe I do. I'll go slowly over the weekend and just think things through as I need some time to reflect and gather my thoughts without constant input. I'd like to express my gratitude to the generous Reddit users once more. Edit, I'm logging off for the moment because my dad is here. Update 4. 5 days since I served my STBXW30F of 7 years. Now everyone is piling on me to talk to her. Hello everyone. I wasn't going to post today, but my inbox is overflowing with notifications that my posts have been deleted. I'm not sure what I did to offend the moderators, but if I did, I apologized. I wasn't in the best of moods, so if I broke any forum rules, I'm sorry. I wasn't really focused on anything else besides attempting to enlist the assistance of all of you wonderful Redditors. I haven't slept for a few days now, or so I think. My memory is a little hazy right now. Since my last post, I've mostly been with my dad and I've also visited Frank's wife in the hospital. She'll stay for a while because she's having a really hard time accepting her circumstances. Even though I make an effort to be helpful, I am probably not much use to anyone right now. I had intended to return to my home today, but I'll postpone that until I can stand on my own 2 feet again. I'll visit my wife on Tuesday, but I have no idea what's going on. Please let me know if you have any information about why my posts were deleted so I can be more cautious going forward. Update 5. 5 days since I served my STBXW30F of 7 years. Now everyone is piling on me to talk to her. I wasn't planning to post until tomorrow after I meet my wife. But I am struggling, so I was hoping I could ask for some more advice from you wonderful Redditors. I hardly sleep and I am not thinking clear, so any advice is much appreciated. Anyway, first some information on the current status. There has been some developments over the weekend. I wanted to show this post and get Frank's wife's permission before I posted this publicly. It appears Frank has done a runner. He has cleared out their joint accounts and is nowhere to be found. We have been in touch with the bank to try to reverse the payments, but they can't do that. They have already passed the funds to a new bank. Since they are married, there is nothing they can do. He is presumably the only one with control over the receiving account, and the new bank isn't sharing any information at all. I guess they are legally bound not to. They were helpful with how you can get a legal injunctive, I think that is what it's called, but that will take time. We only found out on Sunday evening when he was supposed to pick up the kids from his ex-wife. According to one of his friends, someone showed him the Reddit posts and he vanished sometime between Saturday and Sunday. I hated him before, but dang. That is just so cowardly, I can't even find the words to describe it. Robbing his own family? WTF is wrong with this guy? Since my lawyer already has everything from me, filing today by Frank's wife will save both time and money. Really, all he needs to do is replicate my case for her. She loves Frank's kids and will probably lose contact with them because she and Frank's ex-wife don't get along very well. I feel bad for her. I have been dealing with intense emotional waves. I broke my pinky punching a door over the weekend, so I haven't been in control of myself. It has been going from unbearable sadness to absolute blinding rage. I think I've got it under control more now. The fact that my father has stayed by my side nonstop has been a huge help. I have spent a lot of time with Frank's wife, both in person and on the phone. Right now, we serve as each other's counselors and emotional crutches. She is devastated beyond belief. She has left her children with her parents and is expected to leave the hospital this week. If she needs financial assistance, my dad and I have offered to provide it. Thankfully, she would be able to support herself and the kids under normal circumstances, and her employer has been equally supportive. However, their financial safety net is no longer there. I still haven't spoken to my wife, and I'm not sure what to say. I'm not even sure where to start. I don't want to get into a shouting match or do anything else unproductive because I know that meeting her will be emotionally draining. In order to stay as future-oriented as possible, I'll try to think of her as the mother of my children and try not to dwell too much on the whys and whats of what she did. I'm going to do everything in my power to keep from thinking of her as my wife who betrayed me and the rest of the family. We need to concentrate on how we proceed from here because we will divorce. We won't progress in our discussion at this time because the emotions are still too raw. We must decide on child custody and her recovery strategy so that she can care for our kids again. Kids require their mother. In an effort to provide the best care possible, I've tried to identify the top 5 issues or points of agreement. We must make sure we give our kids what they require from us. I want to try and concentrate on this, but every time I sit down, I either type random words or just stare at the page, unable to even begin to write anything. Please assist me with this. I need some clear perspective to cut through the confusion and lack of sleep in my mind. I don't want to punish her, so this is where I stand right now. I want to leave, and I want my kids to experience as little pain as possible. My wife needs to move on and resume her life, just like I do. We don't need to spend any time on that since the divorce is already underway, unless she wants to contest it. I'm not yet sure what she plans to do. Everything in our lives right now is one big painful clusterfuck. Priority 1 is to sort it out so we can function for our children. This must be done immediately. I don't think we can fully reconcile, but we do need to at least agree to disagree on the roles of mother and father. However, we require sufficient amounts to carry out our parental duties. It is priority 2. For priority 1, we can probably put up with it. But if we don't address priority 2, things will gradually deteriorate and fail. I don't want our lives to spiral into a hateful, resentful place toward one another. I'm hoping you can assist me. Tomorrow is not something I'm looking forward to, but I'm hoping I can remain focused enough to at least begin a process between us to move in this direction. Once I see her, I'll give an update. Update 6. 5 days since I served my STBXW30F of 7 years, now everyone is piling on me to talk to her. So, it's safe to say that today has been a very acidy day. Lately, it seems like my life is just a never-ending string of awful days, each one vying to be the worst. Thank you all so much for your messages. I apologize that I can't reply to everyone, but I do try to read them all. Please pardon any mistakes. I'm a little tired. For hours, I have been sitting here and replaying this day in my head. Repeatedly typing it out on a keyboard. Searching for the right words to describe what is happening in myself. In order to meet Sue's mother today, as many of you suggested, I spoke with Sue's mother yesterday to see if she had any additional information to share. She has just reiterated how bad of a situation Sue is in. She could only provide me with one piece of fresh information. Frank left immediately after I dropped her off at the hotel. He just passed my wife as she sobbed on the floor in the hotel hallway. According to Sue's account to her mother, he apparently didn't even say anything. When I attempted to contact a few of her friends, I discovered that their friendship group was currently at odds with one another because Sue had been strongly encouraged to have this affair by some of her friends during their regular girl trips. Since they have all been friends since elementary school, they frequently attend movies, plays, and other similar events. Apparently, the supporters are now being shunned. These events have caused news to spread like wildfire. It seems to have prompted a lot of husbands to start posing awkward questions to their wives. I also learned that my wife wasn't the only one who was having an affair. It seems that she is clicking with 2 other cheaters. I believe the husbands who matter have been informed. Anyhow, I thought I was ready to meet my wife this morning. I regret and feel ashamed to say that I wasn't at all. The meeting today was a complete failure and disaster. I failed miserably at everything I attempted. I had my rules, my point of view, and my list of important things that I had mentally prepared myself for, and I had this vision of myself as this rock of practical professionalism. Sue's health, finances, and other topics were among those we intended to discuss. We would figure out a solution and ways to proceed. Instead, this day has left nothing but raw pain and failure in my memory, and I'm pretty sure I'll carry that scar with me forever. Days have passed since I last felt comfortable, but just before we left this morning, I started to feel incredibly stressed and anxious. I started to hear this high-pitched, TV-like whine in my ears. For some reason, my mouth drained more and more saliva. Uncomfortably, my mouth felt dry. The tension only grew worse despite my attempts to will it away, swallow it, or push it away. The last hour I spent pacing around aimlessly was probably the longest hour I have ever experienced. I was ready for it to end when we finally left, but I couldn't help but visit her. I had likely been awake for 30 hours straight by the time we got to the hospital. I wasn't exactly operating at full capacity. I should have canceled it at that point. Before they allowed us to check in, they corona controlled us for temperature and symptoms. I began to shake a lot and start to perspire heavily as soon as I entered the elevator. My glasses were slightly fogging up with each breath and the face mask felt constrictive to breathe through. I believe I was on the verge of total panic. A doctor welcomed us when we entered the ward. The decision to allow my dad to accompany me was reached after some discussion. I had trouble following the doctor's instructions as he described the do's and don'ts of this visit. My heartbeat felt like a jackhammer was in my chest, and the whine in my ears seemed pretty loud at this point. The meeting would end and Sue would be taken back to the ward if it became necessary, he said, adding that she was stable but exhausted. He informed me that Sue had been requesting my presence constantly, day and night. He continued to question me, and I was forced to justify my answers. He also inquired about my well-being. My appearance was obviously unappealing. I simply stated to him that I must take action. We were led into a space that was likely created with the intention of making guests feel at ease. We took a seat and waited. At this point, I was really having trouble. I made an effort to concentrate on being productive. Sue is the mother of my children, and my inquiries. When my father noticed that I was having trouble, he put his hands on my shoulder in the same way that he had when I was a child. He assured me everything would be alright. The fact that I was unable to see his recognizable "it'll be okay son" face helped to somewhat calm me down. I then realized how much I detest face masks. Smile. As soon as the door opened, orderlies entered. As they move aside, I notice Sue, who is in a wheelchair and has her eyes closed as if she is sleeping. All of my preparations immediately go to S at the moment I see her. All I can see is my best fried food in more than a decade. My confidant, the person I adored so much, is there. I see the person who would be on my mind just after I wake up and just before I go to sleep. My protective instincts kick me in the stomach so forcefully that I almost throw up. I would have gone through any hardship at that time for her. I would have moved any mountain. She is there, broken, standing in front of me. I wanted to assist her and grab her because my brain felt like it was short-circuiting. Tell her it will be fine while holding her close. But I just can't S moving. My mouth feels so dry, like it's glued shut, and no matter how hard I try, I can't get it to open. The closest analogy I can come up with would be to be standing inside my own head and peering out from behind my own eyes, if that makes sense. I feel paralyzed, like a nightmare where you are immobile. My heart continues to beat steadily harder and faster throughout. In a cheesecloth wrap, I'm perspiring as though I were made of water. The doctor makes a statement. The noise in my ears is now so loud and screeching that I can't understand it. He moves to a chair next to my wife and speaks to her. Sue didn't look good. Gray and lifeless, frail, and deflated. She is one of those drip bags on one of those rolling hat racks they have in hospitals, as if sitting is too much for her. Sue stays still. I alternately glance at the doctor and the nurse, and for an uncomfortable period of time, everything is unbearably quiet. Unexpectedly, Sue opens her eyes. As soon as she recognizes me, she flies out of the chair and rips the drip attached to her hand in one swift motion. She starts crying while hugging my legs and getting down on her knees. I struggle to find the right words to express how her crying hurts me. She repeatedly begs for forgiveness in the form of a chant. For some reason, she sounds extremely loud to me, as if the noise in my ears is also being made by her voice. My legs feel warm, soft, and gentle against her body. Her tears are dampening my thigh. Her touch gives me a familiar, desperately needed feeling. I continue to feel frozen. I just don't know how to move. I try, but my body just isn't cooperating, and as much as I want to just grab her and hold her, I just can't. I still find it difficult to speak because I'm crying just thinking about it. With a dry mouth, I'm attempting to swallow my choking tears. If it weren't for the face mask, I would likely appear completely insane. I need the ability to move. No, I'm afraid I can't. I am unable to get my opening a dry mouth with dots. I can't recall any of the things I had planned, so I'm at a loss for words. Sue's chant eventually changes to, "I love you, forgive me," and briefly shakes me out of my reverie. However, all I am able to say in place of my well-planned questions is, "Why do you despise me and our family, and what gave you the right to destroy us?" I think the doctor earlier prohibited me from saying what I'm about to say. Sue's sad eyes are on mine, and I'm looking at my father. I'm very perplexed, and I'm starting to get really irritable. To hear my dad crying, I fix my wife with my gaze. As I pop a vein, I hear a loud bang and immediately feel a biting pain in my left eye. In addition, A terrible nosebleed occurs, like water flowing from a faucet. It instantly fills my mask to the brim and is pouring down my chest. Sue faints because she is unable to handle the sight of blood. We are surrounded by some frantic activity. I continue to stand still. In what seems like an instant, the two orderlies have her sitting in her chair and leaving the room. I'm on the verge of passing out as the nurse places one of those blood pressure pumps on my arm. Blood is all over, the doctor yells something to someone, and then I quickly receive an injection into my arm. I'm just out cold. I find out later that my blood pressure was 197/120. So, it's not good. I had a terrible headache when I woke up a few hours ago in a different ward, so here I am. My nose hurts a lot, and my left eye looks horribly bloodshot. I feel like total S. While I was out, my dad picked up my laptop, some clothing, and other necessities. He then left for home to give me some privacy. Also for himself, he needed some rest. He is the most shaken up I've ever seen him. In fact, now that I think about it, I've never witnessed him cry before. The doctors want to monitor me here until tomorrow. That is fine with me. I am very worn out. Being completely free of obligations other than to lie here is kind of nice. Thus, the day thus far has been S-ity. I understand that it will be much harder to get through this than I had originally thought. I simply can't stop shaking. Such a F, I feel. Failure on the dot. I accomplished nothing. I actually took a step backward. Even if I had tried, I could not have made a worse mess of it. I've come to terms with the fact that I don't really know how to handle this. Simply put, I'm hoping I can figure it out soon. I should have anticipated much greater difficulty in severing my wife's emotional ties. This is not how I anticipated it to be. So there we are. I'm currently confused. I'll try to concentrate on myself for the time being. I need time. My children need me to take care of them, so I must get myself together. My immediate priorities are those. I'm hoping that after some time has passed, I'll be able to see a path forward because right now, I don't see any, to be honest. My heart is telling me to stop, but my mind is telling me that I should keep going. I just don't understand why Sue would put herself through all of this pain and suffering. I wonder if she has ever thought about the suffering she would cause. Most likely, I'll never learn the satisfactory answer to that query. But why in the world would she do this? What had I done wrong to deserve for her to ruin all of our lives? Perhaps if a WW were to read this, they could explain this to me in more detail. My wife must have thought that this was what was best for her, right? She wouldn't have done it if she hadn't. Or have I overlooked something? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't fit what I know about her. Or perhaps I just don't understand who this woman is? I took a sleeping pill, so I'm now incredibly tired. I'm hoping to get some sleep. I apologize for the rambling, incomprehensible message, but I had to get it out of my head. I appreciate all of your assistance up to this point. Update 7. 5 days since I served my STBXW30F of 7 years, now everyone is piling on me to talk to her. The sleeping pill had worn off and I sat here thinking for a few hours. It's pretty quiet here. No one is awake as far as I know except the nurse on call down the hall. I'm so sorry I haven't replied to anyone. I've read everything and thanks for all the support and ideas. I'm actually feeling pretty low and down. Writing this helps me think things through. Have there been some comments suggesting that this is some sort of exorcism? I would give anything not to let this be my life. I was diagnosed with high blood pressure which showed up yesterday in nosebleeds and red eyes. I have some pills that I will need to take daily for the foreseeable future. I decided almost as soon as I woke up to start some form of communication with my wife. Obviously I'm not ready to meet her yet, but I felt I had to see her yesterday. I had planned what to do, but one thing kept me from making the decisions I needed to make. I needed to know how I felt about her. I'm so ashamed of how much I still love her. I want to hate her so much for what she did. Maybe I'm an idiot? I am less and less sure of something. But the hate just isn't there. I want it there but it's not. I don't understand why there isn't. It was meant to be. She betrayed me. She hurt me more than anyone ever did. I still love him? How come? I understand that it is unproductive and a little ridiculous not to have any kind of contact with her. So I unblocked it. Lots of messages and calls. I can't go through them all. There must be thousands. I texted her asking if we could try to talk over text and WhatsApp. Surprisingly, he responded immediately. In any case, I didn't expect an answer until morning. I told her we need to work for our kids and that's what we need to focus on for now. She didn't agree that she wanted us to talk about everything. I asked her not to give me walls of text, that we should try to bring up one and one issue and discuss it before moving on to the next one. In response, she sent me a very long list of issues, actually 136. Most of them are things we could do or read about to try and find ways to reconcile. I have asked them to put all reconciliation points on hold for the time being. I realize this is too raw for both of us. I can't speak for her, but I'm not ready to deal with this, at least not productively. He tells me he hasn't really slept. He also tells me that it's all his fault, that he has no valid excuses or valid reasons for what he did. He swears this is the only time she's ever done anything like this. I really don't think I believe it, or maybe I don't want to believe it. Am I trying to hold on to my anger? To hate? I don't know anything anymore. She claims the case was drugged and she couldn't contain herself. I do not know? Is that even true? Is it possible? She told me she was fired from work and claims she hasn't heard from Frank since the hotel. She also claims that she told her family and friends what she did, so apparently everyone knows? Hardly anyone contacted me. I feel very hurt for some reason. I made her swear that she wouldn't try to end it forever. She promised if I just talked to her. It pissed me off so much it sounded like blackmail, talk to me or something, but maybe she's just being honest? Am I reading everything from the worst angle? I don't think I understand myself, maybe I never did. But at least we communicate a little. Today I consider it a victory. I have decided to move home and have the kids come home if my dad can stay with us. If he can't, I'll wait a few more days with the kids. I find myself doubting myself a lot now. I used to be so sure of things. Now it's like I can't decide on anything. Got a message from Frank's wife that she's back home, so I'll visit her later. Can't wait to talk to her. Frank is still missing. No one knows where he is. Or at least no one wants to say where it is once they find out. I looked at myself and swallowed bitter pills this morning and realized some accomplishments. It's not my role, and it's not my role to want to punish my wife. I have to take a step back and let it take its course. Trying to force things like I did only hurts everyone. I'll take a step back. I'll try to find WWS to answer some of the questions I have. I will try to calm down and calm the situation as much as possible. I have to find a way to clear my head. Do I really need to understand how anyone can make this kind of choice? I'll make an effort to exercise patience and let my body deal with these feelings and difficulties at its own pace. Prior to yesterday's meeting, I had persuaded myself that if I just finished this or that, the pain would soon pass. I actually need to mourn this properly, and we all need to do this. We can never go back to the way things were. The new future, which I do not know what it will be, kind of terrifies me. I must take care of that. I now recognize that there is no quick fix in this situation and that I am not in charge after yesterday. But I can't just finish pushing this. I need to get ready for the long haul, as many of you have advised me. For at least a week, I'll probably stop posting to Reddit. I'll still read comments and respond to inquiries, but I feel like I need some distance. I am currently unable to even manage my own feelings because there are so many opposing points of view. On every comment I read, I swing from endorsing one viewpoint to the next. Thank you for your encouragement. Posting here and interacting with you all has been very therapeutic for me. I appreciate your attention. I need to consider the fact that my wife is also in pain, as so many of you pointed out. I will try to do this. The fact that I need to find a way to forgive and that holding on to all of my hurt and anger is perhaps the most significant realization I've ever had. It doesn't mean I'll forget, but I do need to figure out how to be forgiving. Update 8. 5 days since I served my STBXW30F of 7 years, now everyone is piling on me to talk to her. The past week has been interesting. This is a lengthy post, but because of the tremendous support I've received from this community, I feel compelled to outline the situation as it stands today and what I've discovered thus far. Along with the kids, I returned to my home. Sue recently made her return to the inn as well. Mom and Dad spend the day with us and provide a lot of assistance. Considering everything, children are doing well, but they are unavoidably upset. During the 2 weeks that they were parked with their grandparents, their parents essentially vanished. For the sake of my children, I wish I could have handled the first 2 weeks more effectively, but I just couldn't. I was completely lost, and it's been extremely difficult for me to climb out of the hole I fell into. Returning to the kids has given me a lot of strength I had no idea I possessed. I'm happy to report that I'm in full control of my faculties and that I'm doing well. Even though I still have a ton of trauma and pain to work through, I can handle it well now. I feel more secure in myself now, and I have hope for the future. I'm a very organized person with a strong attention to detail. Keeping an in-depth journal is helpful to me. In reality, Sue and I are doing it right now. It aids in our investigation of just one problem. Each day, we talk for an hour during a specific session. During this, we make an effort to comprehend and order the issues for discussion. In addition, if we can't come up with a suitable answer or resolution right away, we put things on hold to deal with later. This 1 hour gives us enough energy to spend with the kids watching TV, playing games, or working on schoolwork. If we are being completely honest, 1 hour is pretty exhausting, so we limit it for the time being. We were able to disconnect after the session, and we all shared in creating some wonderful new memories. If you are working with a partner in a challenging situation like this, I highly recommend this as it has helped us tremendously. It naturally produces a strategy and enables us to fully resolve problems with tenacity and a modicum of emotional distance. If we don't finish, the conversation will simply continue the following day. We have also visited IC for each child, as well as family therapy with the boys and me. Me and the kids have also talked a lot. Sue attended the previous session as well. Sue had trouble following the session's instructions. At the moment, she is wallowing in guilt and shame, so I suppose we just need to be patient. Sue is better off living at the house with the rest of us now that she has been discharged from the hospital for a few days. Before you guys start berating me for ejecting her, during a pandemic, I will not evict the mother of my kids who is unemployed. I want to be able to be proud of the majority of my behavior when my kids are grown and they ask me about this time. Additionally, I find that planning ahead is very beneficial. By allowing me to set goals, it enables me to see past the excruciating pain I'm currently experiencing. With a diagnosis of mild PTSD, Sue attends daily therapy. Her therapist is confident that she is no longer in danger of taking her own life. Her presence has been appreciated by the kids, who naturally miss their mother. She seems to be in good shape, and I believe that for her and everyone else right now, staying together is the best course of action. I have decided that the divorce will go through, so let's get one of the major issues out of the way. The deciding argument originated in a PM conversation I had with a self-described lesbian feminist. She had some persuasive arguments about my wife being a grown woman with agency because she is a grown woman, but the conversation was mostly filled with nonsense about patriarchy and historical oppression. In fact, she gave me a lot of praise for allowing my wife to make her own decisions, no matter how foolish those decisions were. Since I wasn't in a good headspace at the time, I didn't always make the best decisions. I now regret not confronting Sue more forcefully earlier. When looking back, it's simple to see a better course. The discussion with the feminist was occasionally perplexing, but the conclusion was this: if this were a married gay couple with 2 male partners, would anyone question the agency of the partners, the WS or the BS? The answer to that is no. So I will treat my wife like she has agency to make her own decisions and let her suffer the results of those decisions. I must acknowledge that my wife made the decision to act in this way because it satisfied her at the time and made perfect sense to her. It was a stupid decision, but stupid decisions are made every day. For example, people frequently drive after drinking. A negative outcome of such poor decisions will occur if they are discovered. I've really examined myself, and this is what I've decided to accept. I find it difficult to reconcile Sue's behavior with the person I thought she was. I don't know this woman who used to be my wife, and that's the hard truth. I can't stay married to someone I don't feel like I know or can't trust because I just don't trust her anymore. Sue is devastated, but she accepts and understands my choice. She has given me everything in the divorce. Full custody of all of our possessions, including our home and cars. I have flat out refused to do that. Once she is comfortable with it and her psychiatrist approves of it, we will fairly divide the family's assets and she will automatically regain 50-50 custody. She also insisted that I look for a woman and have an affair with her, but I won't. A new relationship is not something I am particularly interested in. I believe I already have enough to do. Second, I believe Sue wants this, mainly because she thinks it will lessen her guilt. However, I fail to see how adding more suffering and complication to this predicament will be of any assistance. Furthermore, I don't have the right to drag a defenseless outsider into this agonizing mess. She has also promised to act entirely transparently, with full access to everything, and with my approval. I don't want to be her jailer or warden, though. She is free to show me if she wants to, but I won't watch over her like I have. Now she needs to earn people's trust. Although I'm mad at Sue, I don't want to hate her. But I am aware that I must avoid that. My desire is for our children to grow up knowing their mother, no matter what happens in the end. Until recently, we lived a happy life. We both love our children, and I am thankful for the time we had together. We began corresponding electronically the next day, following our meeting in the hospital. Sue writing a letter for me would be the best way, we decided, to start the conversation. I would go into great detail in the letter about everything she has done for us. Every detail of her friends, including how it all began with Frank. Everything that occurred before she sat down to write this. Her needs, wants, fears, motivations, etc. Oh, let me not forget. Frank has left the country, as we discovered. Or at least the portion that belongs to his wife, he has transferred the money back. Frank's wife is therefore fine. It turns out that Frank's mother herself hired a PI on Monday to find him. She was also extremely angry and worried about him. His mother will only say that he is in a different country but not specifically where. Frank has decided to get a divorce without a trial and won't be coming back anytime soon. My sources tell me that Frank was allegedly threatened on Saturday by one of the betrayed husbands. But I'm not sure. At this point, most of it is hearsay and rumor. The steps Sue took to arrive at a place where she could convince herself to have an affair are revealed in her letter. It actually began more than 3 years ago, which surprised me. Although reading it was very challenging for me, it felt very honest. Let's call her Betty. She was one of their high school friends who left the area at age 18 and returned about 4 years later with her family. Betty began an affair with a former classmate. She would gush for hours about how wonderful it was. Blah blah about how they would secretly check into spa hotels. No one was hurt because they were ignorant, etc. I'll tell you how she earned it, etc. How the infidelity actually improved her as a wife, etc. Basically every justification for cheating that has ever been offered. I've discovered that, in addition to Sue, 4 other women in the group have cheated on their husbands. Each of their 2 brief relationships ended after the first in-person encounter. Over the years, Betty engaged in numerous long-term relationships. Another woman recently ended a 7-month relationship. When she began her own affair 7 months ago, she joined Betty in the marketing initiatives for the advantages of affairs. 3 husbands, from what I've heard, have already made the decision to file for divorce. I've been attempting to comprehend my wife's behavior to see if there is something I've overlooked. Although it has been difficult to accept, her behavior in regards to the affair appears to have nothing to do with me. She has described how the affair turned into a fantasy that grew over time as life grew monotonous. A kind of fantasy getaway from the everyday. She became trapped when Frank expressed interest in her. In it. The flurry, the thrill, she never gave much thought to the repercussions or how doing so would harm me or her family. She never intended it to happen. She developed an obsession with getting her fix, even at greater risk. While her devoted friends warned her against it but did not insist, her scheming friends encouraged her. I've had a lot of conversations with Suze and her therapist. I now realize that this requires a slight shift in how I perceive the situation. There are shades of gray. Not just my perception, hurt, and ego need to be taken into account. There are many other factors and subtleties as well. My stress levels have significantly decreased, almost returning to normal, since I realize that I need to fully reflect on this before making any decisions. In the context of this kind of compulsive, addictive behavior, several therapists have described it to me. I've also had a lot of conversations with WW and BS, and I want to thank you both for answering all of my stupid questions. I am starting to comprehend this now. While this does not justify Sue's behavior, it does lend some sympathy to it. It makes sense to me. This does not imply, however, that I will forget or forgive it. Like everyone is aware, drinking and smoking are bad. Regular exercise is important, junk food is unhealthy, etc. People continue to act in this manner despite knowing better. Look at the lung cancer ward where patients who are nearing death are still smoking outside. I know Sue is having a similar mental response to this affair. An affair turned into a fantasy, and the thrill of it into an addiction. Like some sort of adrenaline addict. After some initial touching and kissing at the hotel, Frank had just begun to give her OL when I jolted reality into her make-believe world. Sue admitted that she intended to follow through on her commitment. When reality set in, she was driven to make it right and it became her only focus. It somewhat explains how she behaved after D-Day. She simply couldn't handle it when she read the Reddit posts and lost faith in her ability to fix anything. To put a stop to it, she made several attempts. He has acknowledged that she would leave me if the tables were turned. I am therefore confident that she is being sincere. She probably wouldn't cheat again, in my opinion. She received permanent scars. The reason she did this is now beyond her comprehension. Now, Sue looks to me like a person who has an addiction to gambling. I don't respect that kind of weakness, but I do think people are capable of improvement. Despite not being a virgin, I have used drugs before. When someone gave me the chance to leave, I did. Now, I'll see if Sue can resolve her problems with my assistance. In all honesty, I believe the shock of it helped her kick the habit. That brings me to the future. I'll give Sue a chance to earn back my respect before maybe, just maybe, giving her my trust. I'd think about dating her again if she earned my respect and trust once more. Due to this, Sue appears to be highly motivated and is obviously making a significant effort. She must demonstrate to me that she can do this. I have made that very clear. One of the betrayed husbands was already invited over, and she went over everything with him. She then invited his wife to visit, her former companion, and assured her that her husband had been briefed on everything. She remained firm and acknowledged her part in it despite the loud yelling that followed. That required bravery. She acted honorably. Additionally, she has apologized and spoken with Frank's wife. They actually got along pretty well and cracked jokes about Frank's weaknesses while enjoying a few glasses of wine. I found everything to be somewhat bizarre. In the hallway, I was listening. To put it another way, Frank was not portrayed favorably. Bond over ripping into a common ex. Is this something women do? Sue has inquired as to whether she should provide the same information to the remaining betrayed husbands. Betty came to our door yesterday and begged Sue not to tell Sue's husband. Betty was certain that her husband would leave her unless Sue agreed to a light version, so she needed Sue's consent. Betty's husband will be having dinner with us this evening, so my wife declined her request. Sue promised he would hear the whole, uncut truth. It's safe to say that Sue and Betty are no longer close friends. She has ignored the numerous messages that the other cheaters have sent her. Sue has also agreed to the requests from the devoted wives to meet with their husbands in order to reassure them. I suppose she is now aware of who her friends are. I actually organized my options and decisions into a large spreadsheet. The process of weighing the advantages and disadvantages is a complete mess. What is best for the kids and what are the advantages of this or that? What is this and that's drawback? For instance, there is no assurance that a new girlfriend would be any more devoted. There is no assurance that I would find a new partner who would get along with my children, etc. I ultimately decide that taking my time and watching to see if Sue makes any progress is the best course of action for me right now, especially for the kids. She needs to reach a stage where we can attempt to start a new relationship, and I need to see that she can. We no longer have it. Still, it was excellent on a plethora of levels. Who knows if we could repeat that or if it would be a failure. I'm not in a rush, but I will take action if I believe it's pointless. We can work on co-parenting until then and find ways to stay at least amicable. By no means am I a perfect husband or human. Like everyone else, I am not perfect. Going forward, whenever I feel like I have to judge Sue, I will keep this in mind. Therefore, this is likely my final activity here. I might post another update in a year or two. I'm grateful beyond words to the Reddit community. I appreciate your assistance greatly. I am aware that the final decision rests with me, and I am grateful that you all made time to encourage me to think more deeply.